Where charm met procurement, the invoices remembered. We opened the record behind top 10 most corrupt female African politicians of all time. Not a rumor, not rage, evident. Commission pages, court stamps, confiscation receipts. We follow the audit tick. As you already know, this ranking uses court records, Interpol notices, UNODC, Transparency International Index, IMF datasets, STAR, and ICIJ. We don't guess here. All the entries are fact-based. Each entry is scored against 10 universal criteria, with gaps clearly stated. Like we always do for the evidence, our expose narrator takes you through the records, filings, asset trails, and verified documents. Thanks, Dr. Komla. Today, we open a dossier ranking corruption cases involving women in African politics, built from indictments and procurement records. Invoices tried to blush, auditors turned on the lights.
Disclaimer: this ranking follows records, not rumor. Where unproven, we say alleged. Commission findings are convictions. Civil forfeiture is recovery, not guilt. Corruption ends in audits, exposure, sanctions, and asset return. The top 10 on the list is Lynn Brown, South Africa. State capture facilitation. Commission findings, prosecution recommended. Case Spotlight. 2022, Johannesburg. The State Capture Commission found that the former Public Enterprises Minister abused appointment powers at Eskom and Denel, lied about contacts with Gupta network fixer Salim Essa, and participated in state capture, with recommendations for investigation and prosecution. Identity line: South African, born 1961. Portfolio included Public Enterprises, 2014 to 2018. Snapshot: indicators and status. Pattern: board stacking, executive suspensions, and denials under oath contradicted by call logs and emails. Status: commission findings adopted and published. No criminal conviction recorded in this file. Investigative detail: the paper trail starts before the board shuffle. Cell phone records the commission subpoenaed show 8 calls between Minister Brown and Gupta Lieutenant Salim Essa from 24 November 2014 to 19 March 2015, total 1,398 seconds, plus 12 unsuccessful attempts and a separate March 2015 contact with Atul Gupta. Brown told the commission she could not recall the calls, but did not dispute the logs. The dates overlap the December 2014 Eskom board appointments and end 6 days after 4 executives were suspended. On 10 March 2015, the night before the suspensions, Eskom officials Suzanne Daniels and Abram Masongo were summoned to Melrose Arch. The commission found they met Essa inside his trillion-linked offices, where acting appointments were discussed for roles that would be vacant the next day. A third official, Ms. Dlamini, testified Coco tried to pull her in and asked for her CV to line up an acting CFO. The chair found Coco's denials a fabrication, accepted the Melrose Arch meetings as fact, and linked them to the next day suspensions of Matona, Marakane, and Tushalofo Molefe. Downstream, the same board period saw Eskom cash routed into the Gupta's coal play, a 659 million rand prepayment and a 1.6 billion rand guarantee that helped to get a close the optimum deal. Transactions the report says were misrepresented to the board. The commission names Brown's role in enabling the board environment that made this possible and recommends investigation and prosecution. Financial trace and BOMAP. This chapter centers on appointments and influence, not direct personal bank proceeds. The commission ties governance moves to later corrupt contracts. Mission recap. Outcome: adverse findings, referral for potential prosecution on related offenses. National context. The Zondo process formalized years of testimony on how boards were weaponized to route multi-billion rand deals. Asset recovery and sanction status. This entry reflects findings and referrals. Recoveries flow through linked Eskom matters, not a personal confiscation order against Brown. Gap clarifier. Commission findings are not criminal convictions. They are detailed, citable records used by prosecutors. One line to stay with us. When you capture a board, you do not need a briefcase. The top 9 on the list is Katrina Hansi-Himarwa, Namibia, corrupt use of office, High Court conviction, fine imposed. Case Spotlight, 2019, Windhoek. The High Court convicted the former education minister for corruptly using her office as regional governor to swap housing beneficiaries for relatives. Sentence included a fine of 50,000 Namibian dollars with default imprisonment and a suspended term. Identity line: Namibian, 1967-2024. Last jurisdiction, Namibia. Snapshot: indicators and status. Pattern: interference in a state housing allocation list. Status: conviction entered, sentence paid, appeal leave later litigated. Investigative detail: the file is precise to days and names. On 15 to 17 December 2014, the Hardap regional governor was briefed on a vetted list for 19 social housing units under the National Mass Housing Development Program, compiled by a joint committee of the Marienthal Municipality, the Ministry, and NHE. Witnesses say she objected to the list, asserted political oversight, and issued directives to alter it. The court found she assumed authority to compel changes despite having no legal power over the selection. The charge sheet names the beneficiaries. She caused 2 selected applicants to be removed and substituted her niece, Justine Gawasis, and sister-in-law, Christiana Hansen. Evidence included the committee's chronology, calls to ministry officials on 16 December, and a written instruction history showing how the list was pulled into the governor's office. The judge recorded that the CEO of Marienthal, Paul Ngiawila, personally knew the governor and was her business partner in 2 fishing companies, a contextual fact noted while evaluating influence dynamics. Verdict: corrupt use of office, contrary to Section 43(1). Sentencing followed on 31 July 2019, 50,000 Namibian dollars or 24 months in default, plus a 12-month term suspended for 5 years on condition. Financial trace and BO map. No offshore flow. The benefit was allocation of 2 public program houses. Mission recap. Outcome: conviction under Namibian anti-corruption law. Sentence satisfied. Resignation followed. National context. One of Namibia's benchmark ministerial convictions, a governance signal even where amounts are modest. Asset recovery and sanctions status. Record centers on penal sanctions, no separate cross-border forfeiture noted here. Gap clarifier. Figures reflect the court's sentence and the administrative value of allocations, not resale proceeds. A changed list is a fingerprint. The top 8 on the list is Khalida Tumi, Algeria, squandering public funds, abuse of office, criminal conviction, and fine. Case Spotlight. April 2022, Algiers, the Sidi Mohammed Court convicted the former culture minister of squandering public funds, abuse of office, and granting undue advantages tied to state-funded festivals, imposing 6 years imprisonment and a fine of 200,000 Algerian dinars. Later reporting noted a reduction on appeal to 4 years. Identity line. Algerian, born 1958, culture minister, 2002-2014. Snapshot, indicators and status. Pattern: event budgets repurposed through undue privileges and irregular authorizations. Status: conviction and fine, custodial terms adjusted on appeal. Investigative detail. In April 2022, the court entered convictions for abusive function, granting undue advantages, and squandering public funds. Multiple outlets recorded a custodial sentence and a fine, alongside terms for co-accused. Local reporting varies on the exact dinar amount attached to Tumi, but confirms a fine was imposed. On appeal in July 2022, coverage notes the principal sentence reduced to 4 years, while fines for co-accused were set between 100,000 and 200,000 Algerian dinars. Financial trace and BO map. Domestic program budgets, no proved offshore layer in the judgment material cited. Mission recap. Outcome, criminal conviction, imprisonment and fine of 200,000 Algerian dinars. National context. Part of Algeria's post-Bouteflika anti-graft wave targeting ex-ministers. Asset recovery and sanctions status. Record centers on penal sanctions. No separate cross-border forfeiture noted here. Gap clarifier. Media reported appellate adjustments affect custody, not the fine's denomination. Hear this. When a festival becomes a faucet, ledgers become witnesses. The top 7 on the list is Jamila Tamazert, Algeria, abuse of office, undue advantages, false asset declarations. Case spotlight. 2022, Algiers, a criminal court hands a 5-year custodial sentence, orders confiscations, and levies a fine of 300,000 Algerian dinars after findings the public procurement at the Arayad Corso agro-industrial complex was bent toward preferred counterparts. The judgment notes 12 bank accounts undeclared on her official asset statement. Identity line. Algerian, former Minister of Industry, proceedings before the Sidi Mohammed Economic and Financial Poll in Algiers. Snapshot. Indicators and status. Pattern. Steering of contracts and conflict of interest around a state flour mills group, incomplete declarations of assets. Status. 5-year prison term, fine of 300,000 Algerian dinars, and confiscation of seized assets affirmed by the trial court. Investigative detail. The record reads like a procurement post-mortem. Auditors lined up contract files from 2009 to 2015 at Arayad Corso and compared them with standard tender calendars. Several awards skipped competitive stages or carried specifications mirroring a single vendor's brochure text. When investigators cross-checked the minister's sworn wealth declaration, listing 5 bank accounts, they found 12 active accounts, a red flag discrepancy captured in the charge sheet. Witness statements from purchasing managers referenced preferences communicated outside the tender committee. The court's narrative anchors liability on those communications, the out-of-pattern award sequencing, and the asset declaration gap. The judgment bundles it as abuse of office, undue advantages, and false asset declarations. Financial trace and BO map. Domestic. Awards and advances within Algeria's agro-industrial chain, with personal banking spread across multiple local accounts referenced in the ruling. Mission recap. Outcome. 5 years imprisonment, a fine of 300,000 Algerian dinars, and confiscation of seized assets. National context. Part of the broader post-2019 cleanup around state industry patronage. Asset recovery and sanctions status. Confiscations target balances and property tied to the Arayad Corso file. Enforcement follows Algerian economic crime procedures. Gap clarifier. This entry follows the enforceable criminal judgment. Any pending appeals or ancillary cases are not counted here unless final. When a tender reads like a brochure, the next page is usually a charge sheet. The top 6 on the list is Maria Helena Taipo, Mozambique. Embezzlement, illicit participation in public business. Case spotlight. July 2022, Maputo. The city court convicts the former labor minister of siphoning 113 million Mozambican meticais from the Directorate of Migrant Labor. Sentence, 16 years imprisonment, plus associated orders against co-accused. Identity line. Mozambican. Minister from 2005 to 2014, later ambassador. Tried with multiple co-defendants in the DTM 113 million case. Snapshot. Indicators and status. Pattern. over-invoiced services and sham contracts routed through the Migrant Labor Directorate, fast-track checks to preferred suppliers. Status: conviction, 16-year term, seizures of vehicles, properties, and bank balances ordered or maintained to support recovery. Investigative detail. The paper trail starts with payroll deductions from Mozambican miners in South Africa, funds meant for welfare and transit. Prosecutors matched those inflows to catering and event services purchase orders that ballooned 3 to 5 times market rate, then to same-week checks authorized from DTM accounts. The judge's recital highlights a pattern: identical wording across bids from different contractors, weekend check approvals, and receiving firms sharing signatories. When defense witnesses insisted the spending was pre-authorized, the bench pointed to seized invoices with handwritten amendments overruling procurement caps, and to WhatsApp printouts confirming delivery of cash equivalents instead of contracted services. Vehicles and real estate acquired in the spending window were tagged. Bank statements with round number withdrawals completed the loop. Financial trace and BO map. Domestic contractor loop anchored in Maputo. Inflows from minor levy funds, outflows to thin suppliers, then into cars and property. Asset freezes applied during trial. Mission recap. Outcome: 16 years imprisonment, conviction for embezzlement and illicit participation in business, recovery aided by seizures. National context. Post-Tuna bond scrutiny sensitized courts and media to procurement red flags. Asset recovery and sanction status. Court-ordered seizures, vehicles, properties, account balances, backstop restitution. Parallel references in official human rights reporting note the same sentence and offenses. Gap clarifier. All figures are from final judgments. Exchange rate equivalents cited in press are descriptive only. If a check clears on Sunday, expect a Monday subpoena. The top 5 on the list is Winnie Mandela, South Africa, bank loan fraud, theft counts later overturned on appeal. Case spotlight. April 2003, Pretoria Regional Court. Conviction on 43 counts of fraud and 25 counts of theft tied to bogus staff loans using African National Congress Women's League letterheads. July 2004 appeal. Theft count set aside, fraud conviction upheld, sentence converted to a suspended term. Identity line. South African, Member of Parliament and ANC Women's League President at the time of the offenses. Snapshot. Indicators and status. Pattern. Letters bearing her signature used to secure loans for non-existent employees through Sambu Bank and a brokerage conduit. Status. Fraud conviction final on appeal. Suspended custodial sentence imposed. Investigative detail. Investigators began with a mismatch. Payroll lists from the Women's League versus loan files at Sambu. Loan applications carried league letterheads and signatures purporting to confirm employment for dozens of staffers. When the bank's due diligence calls bounced, compliance teams escalated. Prosecutors later tabled the application packs, signature comparisons, and a list of applicants who never appeared on any ANC ledger. Court exhibits captured the mechanics: letters faxed from a single machine, contact numbers resolving to the same brokerage desk, and repayments kicked off from accounts linked to allies before default. The charge sheet tallied roughly 942,360 South African rand in exposure. On appeal, judges kept the fraud counts but set aside theft, remitting the sentence to a suspended term. Financial trace and BO map. Domestic banking only. Sambu Bank. And intermediary brokerage channels. No offshore component proved in court. Mission recap. Outcome: fraud conviction stands. Suspended sentence. Co-accused advisor received a custodial term. National context. The case became shorthand for how political letterheads can be monetized and how bank compliance unravels the myth. Asset recovery and sanction status. This was not a civil forfeiture. Recovery hinged on bank claims and criminal penalties rather than asset auctions. The Guardian. Gap clarifier. Only the fraud counts are treated as final. theft counts are excluded after the appeal outcome. A letterhead can open a vault until the reconciliations start. The top 4 on the list is Bathabile, Dlamini, South Africa, perjury tied to the social grants crisis, personal costs sanction. Case Spotlight. March-April 2022, Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Conviction for perjury arising from false testimony to a constitutional court-ordered inquiry into the social grants debacle. Sentence of 4 years, half suspended, or a fine of 200,000 South African rand. Separately, the Constitutional Court earlier ordered her personally to pay 20% of the applicant's legal costs in the grants litigation. Identity line. South African, former Minister of Social Development, ANC Women's League president during parts of the litigation period. Snapshot, indicators and status. Pattern, false evidence about her role in preparations for replacing an invalid contract to pay grants to millions. Status, perjury conviction and sentence. Binding personal costs order by the Constitutional Court. Subsequent compliance noted in public interest reporting. Investigative detail. The trail here is minutes, affidavits, and contradictions. After the Constitutional Court found the Cash Paymaster Services contract invalid, it appointed an inquiry to map who failed to prepare a lawful replacement. Under oath, the minister minimized her operational role. Emails, SASA memos, and meeting notes told a harder story. The magistrate weighed the transcript against documentary exhibits and found the testimony materially false. Earlier, the top court had already pierced the ministerial shield, slapping a personal costs order on her, rare and reputationally fatal, citing conduct that was reckless and grossly negligent. The perjury conviction closed the loop. False testimony about a procurement fiasco that put grant payments at risk. Financial trace and BO map. No offshore chase here. The money story is costs and penalties. A 200,000 South African rand fine to avoid imprisonment, and a personal share of the applicant's legal bill. Mission recap. Outcome: criminal conviction for perjury, suspended custodial sentence against a fine, enforceable personal costs order paid. National context: a landmark on ministerial accountability. Courts using personal costs and perjury prosecutions to protect social welfare systems. Asset recovery and sanction status. Not an asset forfeiture file. Enforcement sits in fines and cost orders already executed. Gap clarifier. This entry is anchored to final court outcomes, perjury conviction, personal costs order, not to broader allegations around contractors. If you rewrite history under oath, the transcript will rewrite you. The top 3 on the list is Nomvula Pala Mokonyane, South Africa. Undue gratification from Bosasa. Commission findings. Prosecution recommended. Identity line. South African, born 1963. Minister of Water and Sanitation, 2014 to 2018. Later Minister of Environmental Affairs. Case Spotlight. 2022, Johannesburg. The State Capture Commission, Zondo, found that Bosasa provided Mokonyane with cash and in-kind benefits and recommended investigation and prosecution for corruption-related offenses. No criminal conviction recorded in this file. Snapshot, indicators and status. Pattern, monthly cash retainer, home upgrades, event expenses, and grocery deliveries tied to a facilities management contractor seeking state business. Status: adverse commission findings, prosecution recommended, commission report made public. Investigative detail: commission evidence ties benefits to dates and deeds. Former Bosasa COO Angelo Agrizi testified that Mokonyane received a monthly retainer of 50,000 South African rand, plus paid groceries, security upgrades, and event costs. He placed bundles and boxes of cash at Bosasa's premises, recorded in his little black book. The panel found much of his evidence credible, despite inconsistencies. Media contemporaneous to the hearings corroborated specifics. a Krugersdorp guesthouse invoice of about 41,000 South African rand for a birthday event, recurring deliveries, and claims of home security work paid by Bosasa. Financial trace and BO map. Cash heavy flows and in-kind payments, party, groceries, security, not offshore wires. Commission chapters on Bosasa described cash generation and bribe distribution mechanics feeding political patrons. Mission recap. Outcome. Detailed commission findings of undue gratification, referral for prosecution. This entry records the commission's findings, not a court conviction. National context. Bosasa became a case study of industrial-scale bribery across ministries and state entities. Zondo's reports formalized the testimony into prosecutable narratives. Asset recovery and sanction status. No personal confiscation order against Mokonyane in this file. Recoveries track through Bosasa-linked tenders and related prosecutions. Gap clarifier. Inquiry findings are not criminal convictions. They are evidentiary roadmaps used by prosecutors. If the bribe is groceries, the receipts still add up. The top two on the list is Diezani Alison-Madueke, Nigeria, foreign bribery proceeds, money laundering, U.S. civil forfeiture, UK bribery charges. Identity line. Nigerian, born 1960, Minister of Petroleum Resources, 2010 to 2015, former OPEC president, proceedings in the United States and United Kingdom. Case spotlight. 2017 to 2023, United States. The Department of Justice filed civil complaints to forfeit approximately $144 million in assets, alleged to be bribery proceeds. By March 2023, it had recovered about $53.1 million in cash, plus a $16 million promissory note. In January 2025, the U.S. signed an agreement to transfer about $52.88 million of those forfeited proceeds to Nigeria. Separately, in August 2023, UK authorities charged Alison-Madueke with bribery. The case is ongoing and she denies wrongdoing. Snapshot. Indicators and status. Pattern. Luxury real estate and a 65-meter superyacht financed through associate-controlled companies, mirroring oil deal timelines. Status. U.S. civil forfeiture wins monetized into public funds. UK criminal case active. Investigative detail. Bank subpoenas mapped oil contract consultancy inflows into escrow for Manhattan and California properties, and vessel finance loops tied to the yacht later compelled to sale. Lien holders were paid out, and the net liquidated value banked. The DOJ's resolutions describe asset sales translating narrative into a balance sheet, tens of millions realized and reserved for repatriation. UK prosecutors, meanwhile, alleged that valuable gifts underwrote multi-million-pound contracts. The case is live. Financial trace and BO map. Special purpose vehicles and nominee companies, property titles in New York and California, yacht and mortgage structures, flows documented in civil pleadings and orders. Mission recap. Outcome: over $53 million recovered by the United States and an agreement to transfer about $52.88 million to Nigeria. UK criminal charges proceed in parallel. National context. Civil forfeiture can move faster than criminal trials. Assets first, verdicts later, especially when cross-border laundering involves high-value property. Asset recovery and sanctions status. Repatriation pathway formalized by the January 2025 U.S.-Nigeria agreement. UK case may drive additional restraint or confiscation if there is a conviction. Gap clarifier. Civil forfeiture is not a criminal conviction. Figures cited reflect final orders and realized sales only. If you can appraise it, a court can auction it and wire the proceeds. The top one on the list is Isabel dos Santos, Angola. Abuse of public position, asset concealment, worldwide freezing orders, sanctions, Interpol red notice. Identity line. Angolan, born 1973, former chair of Sonangol, state oil company by presidential appointment, daughter of ex-president José Eduardo dos Santos. Case Spotlight, 2022 to 2024, multi-jurisdiction. Interpol issued a red notice at Angola's request, November 2022. In September 2024, the England and Wales Court of Appeal upheld a worldwide freezing order up to £580 million against her assets in a civil suit by Angolan telecoms firm Unitel over unpaid loans. She denies wrongdoing and calls the actions politically motivated. Sanctions actions have been adopted by several governments. Snapshot, indicators and status. Pattern, loans and related party transactions routed through Unitel International Holdings and other vehicles. Post-appointment conflicts at Sonangol cited by authorities. Civil claims and sanctions rather than criminal convictions in the UK. Status, freezing orders in force. Red notice live. Sanctions reported by reputable outlets. Multiple litigations continue. Investigative detail. Court filings say Unitel extended loans in 2012-2013 to a Dutch entity she owned and controlled. When repayments failed, Unitel obtained the global freeze. London High Court later affirmed on appeal. Reuters readout notes about £300 million outstanding and records the appellate finding on control. Separately, the Interpol Red Notice confirms an Angolan request citing alleged embezzlement, fraud, influence peddling, and money laundering. The Red Notice is not an arrest warrant but a locator for extradition processes. Investigative consortia, ICGA's Luanda leaks, and later reporting tracked Portuguese freezes and wider sanctions that entrench the lock on assets while civil suits proceed. Financial trace and BO map. Loans routed through Unitel International Holdings Netherlands via acquisitions. Separate lines include Sonangol-era transactions under scrutiny in Angola. Asset freeze footprint spans the United Kingdom, Portugal, and Angola. Mission recap. Outcome: global asset freezes upheld on appeal, Interpol Red Notice, and sanctions designations. Litigation continues. No criminal conviction recorded in the UK files cited here. National context. A state appointment can carry politician-level power. When the paper trail runs through public firms, civil courts make that power legible and seizable. Reuters. Asset recovery and sanction status. Freezing orders preserve assets pending judgment. Parallel sanctions and Portuguese freezes amplify restraint across borders while repayment and liability are litigated. Gap clarifier. This entry relies on final freezing orders and official notices, not on allegations alone. She denies wrongdoing. Reuters. When courts freeze first, spreadsheets become handcuffs.